Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Paul Kerstetter, and today I would want to talk about a woodworking project that I recently completed. It's a project that can be done in a day or two, and I really enjoyed working on it. I've recently been interested in taking a piece of wood that someone is throwing away and turning it into something cool or interesting. In this case, I found a small shelf discarded along the side of the road. It was old and stained, but once I cleaned it up, the wood turned out to be a beautiful piece of cedar. When you see the shelf in the video, think about what you might make out of it if it were yours. If you come up with an idea, I'd love to hear about it. Please leave a comment on the video. So to cut to the chase, this is what I made. It's an extra large holey die, which is the singular of dice. It's about 5 3/8 inches tall. Isn't it pretty? It isn't really useful for anything. If you decide to make it, maybe you could turn it into a pen or pencil holder, or maybe make several of them and string them together on a rope for display. In my case, it's simply an ornamental die that will be a conversation piece in my home. Something fun to look at. If you'd like to learn how to make one yourself, stay tuned. I'll show you exactly how I made it, including how to create the template and the jig needed to drill the holes easily. And today I would like to show you the project I'm going to do. I found a piece of wood that was being thrown away on my walk, and there's the piece of wood right there. And I was like, I wonder what I can make out of this. As you can see, it's been stained and it's got some brackets on it, so it was a shelf. The brackets are kind of neat because they have this kind of detail here. Those are kind of neat. It's not stained on the back. So the size of the wood is about 2 foot in this direction and 1 foot in this direction. And I decided, after looking at YouTube at all the small projects that you could do, I decided to make a pair of dice out of this. And the dice will be about 5.5 inches high or tall. So the first thing I got to do is take the brackets off, get the brackets off, and then I gotta cut it down the center, and then I'm going to run it through my planer here. Make the thickness down to 3/8. Before I cut the wood down the center, though, I'm going to run it on my joiner and make one side flat, and then I'll cut it on my table saw over here. And once I cut it on my table saw, then it'll go back to the planer to make it down to 3/8 thick. And then I'll cut 5.5 inch squares on my miter saw. Okay, first things first, let's get the brackets off. So there you go, I took the brackets off. Okay, the first step I'm going to do is use the joiner, and that's going to make it the side flat, and it's also going to make it square at a right angle. There you go. Okay, we got the the edge run through the joiner, and I've got all the stain off of it. The next step is through the table saw. Nice piece there. Got our nice 2 pieces of wood here. The wood looks really nice. Now we need to run it through the thickness planer, and we want to make the thickness 3/8 thick. 3/8. Got my caliper so I can make sure that it's exactly 3/8 thick. Okay, so there we go. We got the boards to the right thickness. I actually went a little. I got a little bit too. I took a little bit too much off actually. Took a little bit too much off. That's okay though. It's pretty close to 3/8. Just noticing there's a knot right here, so I'm not going to be able to use that for the dice. I'm going to have to cut that off there. So the next step is to cut our squares, 5x5 squares. Okay, today we're going to make a jig. Okay, I have this, and I'm going to plane this down to the right thickness. The thickness of this with the plywood over there needs to be a little bit more than 1.5 inches because that's the nails that I have. The next step is to chop the piece of wood into 4 pieces so it makes a frame around this. So this is exactly 5 3/8. So we need to chop this. So that's the plan there, is to do that. I just need like a base to nail this wood down to. I cut these too short, but it turns out to be fortuitous because I can reach my finger in there and pop that out of there. It'll at least help get this out of there. And this is for the drill press to drill the holes, this jig that I'm making. So the size of the plywood that I need is 8 3/8. And so let's go over here to the table saw. Okay, so the next step is to nail these on. There we go, we got some of these nice nails. Okay, so what my plan is to put this on the drill press, put this in there like that. There's a little bit of play, but that's fine. Makes it easy to get out. And so now I can drill my holes and have something to hold it with. Okay, everybody, I got my jig here, and I'm going to use my template to drill the holes. And I'm going to use my spring-loaded center punch to mark the centers of the holes so I can use my drill press with a 1-inch Forstner bit to drill the holes. Okay, done with that. Can you see the holes in there, the indentations? Okay, and so this portion of the video, I'm going to draw the template I'm going to use to help me drill the holes for the dice. And to do that, the first thing we need to do, well, let me just say, the tool I'm using is called Fusion 360. And it's a 3D CAD tool. It does many things other than 3D CAD, but I use it for 3D CAD, and it's free. That's the nice thing. It's only free though if you are not doing a commercial project. If you're doing something that, if you're doing a commercial project, then you got to pay for it. But in this case, we're just making an ornamental dice. And so I can use the free version, and to start off, to draw our template so that it'll help me drill the holes in the dice wood. I click on this create sketch, and I select the XY plane, and so we want to draw a square. So I click on rectangle and I expand it, and you can see 2 dimensions. You can see an X dimension and a Y dimension. And I know I said in the video I was making a 5.5-inch tall dice, but after making the squares, it's actually 5 3/8. So we need to make a template for a 5 3/8 square. And 5 3/8 is 5.375 inches. And then you hit tab to get to the other dimension and to size that 5.375 inches. And then you hit enter. And if you notice the square is blue, that means it's not constrained, completely constrained. When it's completely constrained, it turns black. So to completely constrain the square so you can't have any way to move it, I select the coincident constraint up here in the menu, and I select the point of the square, and I select the origin, and it locks it down, and the square turns black. So now I'm completely constrained. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to draw some construction lines. So I hit the line tool with the mouse, and over here at the sketch palette it says construction. I hit construction, and I'm going to draw some lines here. They're construction lines. You know they're construction lines because they're dashed. Okay, there's 3 horizontal construction lines. I'm going to draw 3 vertical construction lines. So there's the construction lines, and the idea is to place our holes right where those lines intersect. So there's 9 choices to where we can place holes. We really only want to place 7 holes though, because that's all you need for the dice template. But one problem is the dimensions are all off, and so the way I came up with the dimensions for where exactly to put the origin of the holes is I took the height of the cube, which is 5.375 inches, and I divide by 3, and that gives me 1 dimension. That gives me this dimension here and this dimension here, so it gives me 2 dimensions. The dimensions, though, from the side of the cube to the first hole, though, is half of that dimension. So I take 5.375 and divide by 6 to get that dimension. And so let me get my calculator out here. Calculator. And I'll take 5.375 divided by 3. And that's 1.792. So we'll work on those dimensions. In order to arrange the construction lines to that dimension, you have to use a sketch dimension. And you can get the sketch dimension tool by hitting D if you want. That's a quick key. And we want the dimension to be 1.792. So click on one construction line, click on another construction line, bring the mouse out. 1.7912. I don't think that's it. 1.792. There you go. And then do the next sketch dimension. 1.792. Enter. Do the next sketch dimension. 1.792. Enter. And then the next sketch dimension. 1.792. Enter. Okay, so now we just have 2 more dimensions to constrain and orientate or arrange our construction lines. We need to know what the distance is from the side of the cube to one of the construction lines. And like I said, that's the height of the cube divided by 6, so that's 5.375 divided by 6, 0.896. That's what we want our dimension to be. So from the side of the cube to the construction line, 0.896. Let's check the calculator here. 896, yep, that's correct. Hit enter. And you notice all three of those vertical construction lines turn black. So we're constrained there. Now we're going to do the sketch dimension from the top of the cube to the construction line. And click it and then do a 0.896. Enter. And then all those construction lines turn black. So now we are fully constrained. The next step is we want to add the holes that we are going to drill. So let's just hit the circle tool there and we'll click where the construction lines cross, and then we'll just put some random size hole. If you notice, I have it a construction line hole selected, so I don't want that. Control Z, there we go. So what I'd like to do is undo construction lines. So now we'll have a solid line for our circle. Okay, so now like I select the center where those construction lines are crossing, and it snaps to that point, and I draw a hole, and then I'm going to draw another circle. And I'm just doing random size diameters here. Random size diameters. Okay, so now we have 7 drill holes. And what I'd like to do is set the dimension on one of them. Okay, let's try doing a sketch dimension. There you go. So now we're going to define the diameter of the hole. Let's set it to 1 inch and see what happens here. Okay, so as you can see, the circle turned black, so now it's fully constrained. You can't change it in any way unless you edit it. The next thing I'm going to do is use the equal constraint, and I'm going to select the circle that we constrained and another circle, and that makes those two the same size. And I'm going to keep doing that for all the circles. And that way, make them all equal. So all the circles are equal now. And what's nice about that is I can change the dimension. If I want to change it to 0.5 inches, all the circles change to 0.5 inches. So, but that's not what I want to do. I want to look at to see what 1 inch looks like. I'm considering making the holes 1 inches for the dice. If you notice here, 2 of the circles are blue, so those aren't fully constrained. Not sure why. Thing you can do is try to move it. Oh, I can see why. So that gives us a key, that gives us a hint that those circles aren't fully constrained because they weren't actually drawn at the center point of the intersection. So what I'm going to do is delete that circle because they weren't drawn in the right place. And then I'm going to draw another circle, and this time I'm going to make sure I get the intersection. There we go. There we go. So now we got the intersection. Now we can use the equal constraints and select that one circle there, and that's equal. Select that circle, and now all the circles are black and you're constrained fully. So the next thing I'm going to do, go to my sketch palette, And I'm going to finish the sketch. And I'm going to create a 3D model. I'm going to create a 3D model of one of the sides for my, well, actually it's 3D model of the template because it has 7 holes. And I'm going to select the surface and I'm going to make it 0.375 inches, 3.375 inches thick. And so there you go. We just made a 3D model and you can rotate it and check it out. And so there you go. It's a 3D model of our template. But that's when the template is drilled. I really want a 3D model. I really just want a sketch of the pilot holes, or I just want a sketch of where the spring-loaded center punch is going to go, so I can make indentations in the square piece of wood, and then I can use the Forstner bit to drill the holes out. So really, I just want 7 dots is really what I want. So what I'm going to do is click top there. That reorientates that. I'm going to go click on sketch down at the bottom of the timeline. I'm going to click edit at sketch. And I am going to change the dimension of all the circles to 0.05 inches. And that makes them really teeny so that our spring-loaded center punch can accurately find the center of those holes. Okay, I'm going to hit sketch palette, finish sketch. And if you zoom in, you can see that there's small little holes now. And so the final step here is actually to make a printout of this. And the way I'm going to do that is click on the design drop-down menu. I'm going to click on drawing. I'm going to click from design. So we're going to make a drawing from the design. I'm going to select here in the menu item A size paper. So we have 11 by 8.5 paper. I'm going to click OK. And then it's going to show us. So then we have our drawing, and as you notice, I have this item here attached to my mouse, and that's actually the side view of our template. So we go over here to orientation, click top. That's our top view, but it's a little small, so we just want to put it as a 1:1 scale, and then I'm going to drop it down. And then the next thing I'm going to do is click OK. And I want to click on this here, get rid of that information block. And yeah, so there you go. So there you go. That's our drawing. And so all you got to do is print that out. And if you have the free version, then you can't export a PDF, but there's a way around that, luckily, because it's the PDF that we want to have the drawing on, because the PDF can give an accurate scale, 2-scale drawing. And so I hit print here. And to generate a PDF, I have Microsoft Print to PDF. And I have it set to my orientation to landscape, current sheet. So I'm going to hit print. And I'm going to call this dice to template. Save. So the next thing you do is you get your PDF tool, whether it's Acrobat or Microsoft Word, and you open that up and print it out, and you'll have a template for your dice. And so that's all you do to make your template for your for the dice. So hopefully that was helpful. I'd like to do a little pre-drilling on the base plate here. Okay, we need to adjust this so that it's the right speed for wood. And this says 7/8 is 850 to 950 RPMs. You gotta be careful using your hand to hold this. Okay, so there we got our little bit of offset in our base plate so we can break all the way through our template. Okay, here goes. A little bit of chip out, but this is the interior of the dice. I'm drilling through the exterior so there's a nice clean cut. And by the way, this is the template, so there you go, we got our template now, and now we get to drill the real dice, the real die, the holes in the real die. Okay, I have all my dice faces, and this is the interior of the die. As you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but this is like the worst chip out I have. But since I'm going to be gluing them together, before I glue them together, I want to just sand the interior just a little bit. I have my quarter sheet sander here, and it's 220 grit. I'm going to smooth out the edges of the holes. I have this file here. So the next step is to glue them together, and I need to tape them. But every video I've seen says to put these against a straight edge before you tape them. And a guide for the way you put these together is the opposite sides of the dice must equal 7. So 5 plus 3 does not equal 7. So we need the 2 there. We got the 2 there. 4 and 1. So we need 3 there. So there you go. And the next step is to put tape on them. All right, and we can do that. And put this is a saw guide, by the way, that I used as a straight edge. Okay. Okay. Now we add the glue. So glad I got this foam brush. It's really making this really easy to spread the glue out. Glad I tore those extra pieces off ahead of time. That was good. So far, this has been a super fun project. I might actually make another one of these. So I have a pair of dice. All right. Really went together quite easy and quite well. There you go. Okay, there it is. I took the tape off after about 1 hour of the glue drying, and the tape came off pretty easily. Then you're supposed to wait 24 hours before you put any force on the joints. And so far it's been 20 hours, but I am going to go ahead and start working on this. The first thing I'm going to do is sand it. Got my quarter sheet sander here. Okay, I got some 120 grit on here. Let's try it. See if that does any better. So the 120 grit got all the glue off on this side here. I'm going to go and do the rest of the sides. And then I'll probably back off to 220 to make it just a little bit smoother. And then I'm going to go over to the drill press, which has a drum sander bit on it, and smooth out the corners. Okay, I'm at the drill press now, and what I'm going to do here is smooth off the corners, round them off a little bit with the drum sander here. Okay, just got back from the drum sander. I smoothed off the edges, and that worked pretty well. And I'm just gonna hit it up here with 220 again, and that'll be the end of it. And then I'll put some tongue oil on it. There's the tongue oil. Cost about $15. Polyurethane was about $30. So I opted for tongue oil. Tongue oil is self-leveling, so it's a lot easier to do. Although it's been a while since I used it. But you just use a rag and rub it in. In conclusion, the woodworking project of turning a ordinary shelf discarded on the curb to a pretty cool looking holey die was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. The jig that I came up with to drill the holes was super convenient to drill the holes. It made it really easy, and it precisely located the holes in the die. So I'm really glad I came up with that jig. One thing I didn't like about what I did in the project was how my hands got so close to the blade on the table saw. All I needed was a push block to make it safer. I have push blocks. I have this push block, which is more sophisticated, called a gripper, and all I had to do was go find them. So I should have done that, and in the future I will make sure to use push blocks more frequently. Other than that, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.